Taking some time to join us, and of course we're a little bit early, but that's okay. And right now we're just kind of getting some of our technology out of the way, so at 12 o'clock sharp we'll be able to go, and that's, you know, super exciting. I think super exciting. So thank you, folks, and please in the chat window feel free to, you know, tell us who you are and where you're from and a little bit about what you're up to. That would be great. So this is awesome. Hey, we've got Michael from Orange County, California. It's great. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you're keeping safe down there. And we got, you know, Bill from Slave Lake. Fantastic. I'm sure some of you guys have already introduced yourselves. Here I am coming in a bit late, but kind of get it going here. So welcome, folks. We got all of our speakers lined up, and we're going to hide ourselves in just a moment. So welcome.
Oh. Also would love to hear in the chat what you would love to be getting away from this right now. What are some of the things that you're experiencing as a business? Please feel free at any time to write in the chat. It's not rude. It's not rude to ask questions in the chat. It's not rude to mention comments along the way. That's what I love about the chat. It's very engaging. And so make sure that you say the things that you want to say, you get the questions answered that you want answered, because that's why we're here. And you're so welcome, Michael. We love doing this. This is an absolute privilege to walk alongside and lean in with all you business owners who are facing the same yet different challenges. We're all facing COVID in our own ways, for sure.
Connie, can you hear me okay?
Yes, there
Great.
you are.
All right.
Check, check. This is a check.
It's fantastic.
Ooh, Michael's here to share breakthroughs that help people with anxiety and depression. Well, that's good. Welcome, welcome, Kathy. And Cynthia, one of our awesome team members. You don't often get to see the amazing people that we get to work with, and Cynthia is one of them. And so you'll see her in the chat. She's very good at engaging with people. And one thing we all have in common on our team is that we really love people. Yes. I said it as you were typing. That's great. That's great. Good morning, James McAra. We can't wait to hear from you. And just to let everyone know that today, even though this has been free, this is free of charge, everyone speaking is giving of their time, because we all believe in this, where we're at right now. We want to see people succeed. But we are asking if everyone could make a donation to the Calgary Food Bank today. They do so much for Calgary's most vulnerable, and we want to make sure that we take good care of our village, which is our city. Is in the house from Tool Shed Beer, going to share some exciting things, and Katherine, and we're so excited. This is going to be a great, great morning. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for your generosity. We still have some people registering, so I'm just sending some Zoom links, so I'm not being rude, just getting those out to people. Lots of people registering right now.
Absolutely. And as you're joining us, please do again, let us know your name, where you're from, and in the chat window, and what you're hoping to get out of today. And I know our great speakers will do everything they can to kind of meet that expectation. And welcome, everybody. But our speakers, they look like they're ready for business today, hey?
Tony made it.
It's excellent.
Hey, Tony, good to see you. Oh, we're looking forward to it too, Catherine. Hi, Judith. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
You know, they say Calgary is a last-minute city, and they're not kidding, because there are many who are just registering right now, right now.
Like this second, you know. I think they all heard that they were going to get to see the inside of James McAra's office, and so they all said, "Hey, I got to get on this here."
I've seen the inside of his office. It's not impressive.
Well, it's a food bank, right? I mean, you know, no luxury allowed for sure, right?
Yeah, good coffee.
That's right.
You talk about last minute. You try predicting ticket sales in a theater.
Isn't that the truth, Tony? That is so true.
Yeah, you win hands down for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're going to make X dollars, X being anything from 0 to who knows what.
And if X is a positive number, then we've won, right?
Well, we're eating into what it cost us to put it on at that point, so we're good.
That's awesome. That's great.
I'm gonna mute here in case I swear. So.
Okay. Excellent.
Why we love you, Tony.
That'll take Tony right out of his presentation if he can't swear.
That's right. What do you do when 90% of your presentation is profanity, right? I mean, what else do you have left, you know?
Well,
good to see you. Bye.
Mr. McAra, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tony. How about you?
Grand. Pun intended.
Sorry?
I said I'm doing grand, pun intended.
Well, all the things that are happening, I can only imagine, like when you commented that, ticket sales are, what they are.
Well, there's 0 right now, so we're good.
At least it's not negative.
No forecasting needed.
Yeah. So I'll trade you. I'll give you a massive spike that continues to go through the roof.
Okay.
It's still 0 for revenue.
You do have a good coffee machine, though, in your office. I do.
Well, thank you. Today's the home office, so I've only got...
You're pretending you read.
Well, it's like a poster.
Great.
You can't pretend to me that you read books, James. So.
No pretending involved at all. I have people read them to me, actually.
I read a leadership book one time. It didn't make any sense to me. So.
Jenny.
They're really good for putting on your shelves, though. They look good.
Fucking impressive. Oops.
Yeah.
That's why we mute Tony.
And he's out.
Oh, so funny. Well, everyone, I just want to thank you so much for coming today. We're going to get started just because, we promised that we would honor the time and make sure that you're back to work at 2, whether you would like to be or not. But as you can see, we have an amazing panel here. You're going to get a chance to meet more of them. But my name is Connie Jacob, And I am the, what am I? What is my role? Like, right now it just feels like I am whatever I need to be right now. Oh, there it is. There I am. I am the senior manager of well-being, Wellness Innovate, which has morphed into basically disaster relief, listener, leaning in person with you, having a coffee over Zoom, whatever it takes. I feel like that's my role right now. And as we've been really listening and hearing people's hearts right now as we're going through COVID, really wanted to offer something that would be of real help right now. And I really do believe that it's possible to rise strong. Those were the words that we really felt to put as the name of this mini conference, Rising Strong. And I have had a variety of different reactions to that. Some people say, there's no way anyone knows how to lead this right now. And that's true. No one here, I think, has ever led through a pandemic, unless I'm not the only one. I've never done it. But we have overcome obstacles and crisis in our lives and in our businesses. And the people who I wanted to invite to speak in this today were people that I watch and that Abe watches, and we see them always rising above every obstacle that ever comes into their path. And so you're going to get a chance to hear their real life stories, things that they've learned in the past that will help us go forward. My line of work, my specific focus has been mental health and resilience for the last 20 years. And so I would love to start our time off before I introduce our first speaker, just by asking a really deep question that may not seem like a business question, but it's an important question for mental health and resilience. And I want to ask you, what did you bring into COVID? What mental health traumas, mental illness, what things did you bring into COVID already? Alberta has been through crisis after crisis after crisis since the flood of 2013. And there's already businesses that have been struggling. And even in our own personal lives, it's so important to focus on how we're doing on the inside. We are such a go, go, go culture. We're such a succeed and accelerate and hustle and drive and strive that often we forget to tend to the garden of our hearts, which is where all of our creativity and innovation and business ideas come from. And so yesterday, my husband was out in our backyard. We were so happy that it's finally sunny here, and he was trimming our apple tree. And our apple tree is my pride and joy. We live in my grandparents' house. We were in Vancouver for 14 years, and when we moved back, we inherited a third of this house. And so it's a beautiful memory for us. It's a place that my family has only ever been the owners of my house, which I find really special. And my grandpa planted that apple tree in the backyard. And who knew that years and years and decades later that his granddaughter would be enjoying that same tree, and that my children would be swinging on the branches that I swung on. And so my husband's out there and he is trimming the tree. And to trim an apple tree, I mean, it was so beautiful and bushy in September. And the way he cut it yesterday, it just looks like barely anything. And it really spoke to me about when things are cut off and when things are pulled back in our lives, that's actually the opportunity for real growth. Growth that can go beyond if we never trimmed back, if we never had that pruning, if I could say. And so I know that COVID is not ideal for many, many people, and I'm not making light of that. But I am saying that what an opportunity to be able to step back for a moment and review the foundation of our own personal on the inside. Just really thinking about, what have I brought into COVID? And has this completely disrupted and shaken my own foundation? And if it has, then what an opportunity to look on the inside and to do some inner work. And I know that doesn't seem like business, yet it really is. I read a stat that we live 70% of our day in the back of our brain, in that fight or flight mode. We're not supposed to live in fight or flight that often. It's a response to fear and to different circumstances that allow for us to respond to stress quickly. It's not meant to be a normal state of mind, which is where our culture has been for a very long time. Living 70% of our day in the back of our brain means that there's high levels of cortisol and stress in our bodies that we just tolerate and we just keep going around in circles with. And so when we're in that fight or flight part of our brain, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, where we're creative, where we're innovative, where we come up with ideas. And so right now, even though we're in a place of desperation for some, it's also a place where if we can tend to the gardens of our hearts and be like that apple tree in my backyard and be okay with a little bit of pruning, maybe what could come out of that is a more restful mind and a more restful heart that can be so much more creative than you ever would have known before. I do believe that every single person here, including myself, is more resilient than we know. And the reason why I know that is because to be human is to be resilient. To be human is to overcome the impossible. We do it time and time again. One of my greatest heroes right now, present day, and a Canadian hero is Paul Bourne. He is the CEO of the Tamarack Institute, and he talks about what we do as humans when there's crisis. Some of us will go hide and we'll hoard and we'll pull things in, and with that scarcity mindset. He said, but what actually we need to do in those times to be really resilient as cities and as people is we need to lean into community. We need to lean in to one another. And that's where we rise strong, is when we come together. And so today, the people who are here with us, who are speaking, these are people who have experiences and things to share that are going to encourage you. They're going to ignite you. They're going to give you hope again. They're going to give you skills and tools. But can I just ask all of us, just to start, to remember that mental health isn't something that you fix. Mental health isn't something that you just recover. Mental health is something that we journey through. Resilience is something that we get when we choose to get with the grit and walk through the hard things, and when we do it together. And so Abe and I from Wellness Innovate, we are hosting this event, and we're asking Calgary and beyond, let's come together. Let's rise strong. Let's show one another what we're made of. And what I also hope will come out of today is connections. As we connect in the chat, connect with people who you feel like you could help, because you may not have all the answers right now, but you do hold something in your hand. You do hold a piece of our city's puzzle. And imagine if you shared that piece with someone who was looking for it. Maybe not only yourself could rise strong right now, but maybe there's a business, maybe there's an opportunity to join hands. I was really impressed with Jeff Dyer from the Boys and Girls Club, and they have combined with, I forget, the name just is gone right now. Does anyone know? It's another youth organization, but they have combined
Aspen.
forces. Do you know?
It's Aspen.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Aspen. What an innovative way to move forward. Nobody owns the market on social change, and nobody owns the market on mental health. But we can really rise strong together right now. We can really offer our services to one another and see how can we all succeed. And I think that that's great for business, and it's great for nonprofit. In my line of work, just noticing and watching nonprofits for a while, or not-for-profits for a while, watching how the fear, I need the funding. I love you, but I need the funding right now. As much as it's the reality, right now, I can't think of a better time for us to put our heads together to be creative in how can we move forward? How can we make sure that no nonprofit doing worthy work in our city gets left behind? How can we make sure that the Grand in a couple months here opens up again? How can we make sure that every single person here in our chat feels supported, feels uplifted, feels like they're going to make it, feels like we're going to be with them through this rather than trying to figure it out all on their own? And so, with that, I am so pleased to introduce our first guest. And just a little housekeeping before we start. Every speaker has been given 15 minutes. And I don't know if you've ever spoken anywhere, but that's shorter than a TED Talk, everybody. And so it's a challenge, but it's also doable. And so we're going to be interjecting at the end of their talk. But if you want to know more, if they didn't get a chance to finish, I mean, we encourage you, reach out to them. Reach out to the people that are speaking because they have a wealth of knowledge and lots of things to offer. So with that, I am very pleased to introduce our first speaker, Katherine Emberly from Shaw. I have heard so many wonderful things about Katherine, and then I got a chance to chat with her yesterday. I've been to a couple of events at Shaw, and they are just doing such a phenomenal job of creating a really great culture there. And so, Katherine, we want to welcome you and share whatever is on your heart, and the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Connie. Hopefully everyone can see me and hear me. I'm not sure how the video is working. So 15 minutes is going to be a challenge for me because I have so much to say and share. Just a little bit more about my background. I've been at Shaw for over 16 years and have led through fires, floods, massive business transformation, but I have never, like all of you, led through a pandemic. So a learning opportunity for sure. We're a little bit of the odd woman out here, with a bigger company. And I was really excited to be invited to the panel because we have such a passion for small business and nonprofits, and they make up a lot of our customers. And I'm also a super proud Calgarian. I'm on Calgary Economic Development as well. And I really, like all of you, want to see Calgary rise strong. So I'm going to talk a little bit, but I'm super happy to, if you want to ask me questions or steer me in a certain direction, I'm happy to do that. And then as Connie said as well, I'm very happy to help everyone one-on-one if I can. And so happy to have a chat. So I'll just talk a little bit about what's happened at Shaw. And so, like everybody, we were massively disrupted. And we are a large company, so we have some planning and resources in place. So we have big problems, but we also have big groups of people that can drive solutions. So we did have a business continuity plan. And I remember looking at it in February. We were talking about this in February and all the steps of the plan. And I thought, we will never get to the end of this, which was everyone working at home, closing all our retail stores and doing all that. I thought, we'll never get there, but good for us that we're thinking about that. And within 5 days after this all started, we were at the very end and even further of our business continuity plan. So right away, I shifted my mind into a few ways of thinking. So first was the disruption. So we have over 10,000 employees. So we had to move quickly to have 7,500 people working at home. And so that was a ton of work. And then for our people in the field, we have techs that are still out there. We're an essential service. How were we going to make it super safe and make them feel safe and supported as they went out into the community? So we had our disruption plans, and we're actually at Shaw very good at that. We're good in crisis, and we all had our hats on and run. And so we were able to pivot fairly quickly. The next phase, which is the phase we're in right now, is the quarantine phase. And I really encourage my teams to be ready, and I still encourage people, be ready to be in this for a very long time. So I think when it started, people thought it was going to be a couple of weeks. And I said right from the start, I said, let's plan for 90 days, because then if it's less than 90 days, everyone will be excited, but you're mentally prepared for 90 days. So we got really prepared as a business to manage through this. Communication, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm a communicator by background, and so I immediately fall to communication. And wanted to make sure we were communicating with our people in different ways often and frequently, because it was so much change for people personally and professionally as we went through the transition. And then right away, we also started thinking about, and I'll talk more about this, what I call the post-virus or back to business. So we knew things were going to change dramatically, both in the short and long term. And so we had a team fairly quickly thinking about post-COVID and what that would look like. So that's sort of how we thought about the phases. And then the groups that we really thought about, our number one priority right away was our people. And so we wanted to make sure our people were both personally and professionally supported. And, you know, we've got all kinds of people, new Canadians, young people, married people, older people, everyone in a different situation. And the first thing we asked our leaders was to personally connect with every one of your people. What do they need personally? So are they dealing with someone who's at risk? Do they have health issues within their childcare issues? So we wanted to make sure people felt settled right away personally before we asked them to get back to work. So we are still doing that. We made a lot of accommodations for people in their lives to try to make them, you know, we understand that I'm a mom, and so all of a sudden I've got 2 kids at home, my husband's working at home, I'm working at home. I have no other outside support, which I normally do. And so it's a lot on people, and just being human as people navigate through that. The second thing that we focus on was our customers. And so, you know, we're in the business division, so all of our customers, the vast majority are small business, nonprofits, and then we do work with some larger business. But overnight, every single one of our customers was going, oh my gosh, how am I going to get my people working at home? I need bandwidth, I need security, I need my work phone to ring at home. And so our teams were superhuman, and they did so many things for our customers very quickly. And very creatively, because we couldn't necessarily go into businesses or homes. And so we wanted to make sure our customers had what they needed. And then over the past 6 weeks, we've continued to do that, and everyone's situation is really different. And so, you know, we have some segments like hospitality and restaurants where it's been heartbreaking because they have closed down potentially completely and lost all of their revenue. And then we've got others who are pivoting to online. And so we're trying to be super flexible and supportive through this short term as our businesses. It's in our best interest to keep our businesses strong, because we want to have everybody rise strong out of this. It doesn't help us if people don't stay in business. And then our third priority was our community. And, you know, I'm really happy to see the food bank on here today. We have always at Shaw and personally been big supporters of the food bank, and felt that food security was the number one priority in Canada. So we very quickly gave $1 million to Food Bank Canada to be distributed across. And we've also encouraged our employees to support there as well. We also rolled out online learning for all Canadians. So we did a partnership with a digital learning center just to give kids and people some exposure to some learning as they went through that. And then we also help support low-income Canadians with connectivity. And so I hope everyone's experienced connectivity. We never, you know, it's so important, and it's been the thing I think that's kept all of us sane. And if you have a business, allows you to pivot. And so we wanted to make sure we could have as many people connected as possible. And so that's what we focus on from a community perspective, and we'll continue to do that. So, you know, like everybody, our business has pivoted. You know, we've got all of our retail stores closed, which generate all of our sales. Our door-to-door sales teams, which again generate our sales, we've had to shut all of that down. And so that has been really challenging, but we're certainly shifting and pivoting with that. But we did want to say thanks to the nonprofits and small businesses. You know, I think you guys are all the lifeblood of the community. We're trying to think, as part of our comeback plan, we're trying to think of ways that we can support both of you as we come out of this. And so when we're thinking about our post-COVID plan, I'll tell you how we're thinking about it and how I encourage our teams to think about it. And so there's not going to be, no one today can predict what it's going to look like. And so I would encourage you, don't have a scenario. So we actually have created 4 scenarios. So we have a best case, probable case, worst case, and then what I call black swan if things continue to get worse. And so I would really encourage you to be thinking about your business or your nonprofit in all of those areas where you've got a number of different circumstances there. And so nothing's going to go as planned. No one has a crystal ball. More things could happen, less things can happen. So I would really encourage you to be thinking about multiple scenarios as you do your planning. And so it just helps get your organization ready. So if this happened, what would you do? So I think multiple scenarios is a really important one. The second thing I'd encourage you to think about is what operationally has changed, and some of it's actually going to be really good. And so for us, some things that are helpful are we've really figured out how to do a no-touch self-install with the customer very well. So that's in the long term going to save us some money. It's going to be something that customers want. We have also seen a huge digital adoption. And again, we've rolled out a number of new tools over the past few weeks and will continue to do so. And we don't see any of that behavior shifting back. So I would look at what behaviors within your operations can you actually lean into, which might make you more operationally efficient. You may look at facilities, like how many offices, or do you need office space, or are there different ways that you can operate in your business? I think our eyes are all open to there are many ways to work, and work at home is never going to go away, I can tell you. And so what does that look like for the operations of your business? And then the third piece is what from your customer or your end user base is going to change forever. And so we definitely see some trends. There's a ton of research online. It's being pumped out. All of the management consultant firms like BCG and PwC are putting out fantastic reports that you can access for free. They're already beginning to model out what does that look like. And so I would really look at each individual business and what consumer behavior do you think is going to stick? Do you have the right product mix? Do you have the right pricing? All of those types of things. So those are just a few of the things that we are thinking through as we do our planning. And I think everyone is a little bit different in there, but that's sort of how we've approached it. So I'm looking at my time, so I'm going to try to get to. I don't think there's any questions at this point. So let me see if there's anything on the chat. So if there's anything anyone wants me to answer, I'm happy to do that at this time. But I think that would. I don't know, Connie, if there's anything you want me to touch on.
I wonder if anyone has a question for you. I mean, how often do we get to speak to such a quality leader among other quality leaders? This is your chance, everyone, and we have a few more moments. So, there's a question.
Which reports did you reference? PwC, BCG, BDO. If you just look up management consultants, there's a ton of them. Ipsos Reid is also putting out some great Canadian research, and so some of the trends that we're beginning to see in Canada. So there's actually probably an avalanche of information that's coming out. So I'll send, someone's asking for the link, so I'll send that to Connie, and then you can distribute it. But there's lots of great ones. One was, how am I managing my mental health? Well, interestingly enough, I'll tell you a story. So I have been doing video chats with my team. I've got about 800 people that work on my team, and we've been doing that quite regularly. And yesterday, I think I get fueled on adrenaline. And the first few weeks for me, it was just, I had a to-do list 100 miles long and was running 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then yesterday was the first day that felt like, okay, we have things under control and we can kind of chill out a little bit. But I actually cried on the call, and it was just because I felt so appreciative of all of our people and what they had done for us. Everyone, quickly their whole lives changed, and they were working at home, but everyone was working so hard for our customers. And it wasn't it was just a moment. And then what was interesting though is after, I got dozens and dozens of emails from our people, just on one, they appreciated how authentic it was, and that I have real feelings too. And so I think, for me, mental health though has been a few things. One, I'm a big gratitude person, and so I have a gratitude journal that I write in, and in crisis, it is my go-to number one thing. And so what am I thankful for that day? How do I want to show up, and how do I want people to see me? And there's one online, it's called the 5-Minute Journal, and it's, I think, $5 or $6. It's an app, and all my people, I encourage them to use it, and I use it every day. And it just helps me start the day with what am I thankful for, what's going right. My other mental health is exercise. And so that was one of the things I've always exercised at home. So that wasn't a big change for me. So just getting out and moving. And so again, I asked my people, I said, walk around the block. I don't want anyone booking meetings at lunch. I want people getting out, get some sunshine, whether it's yoga or a walk or whatever fitness. So moving is super important for me. I've got to move. And I think taking care of your health are some of the things that I have found that have been helpful. How are you preparing for what post-COVID world looks like? I think is that an everyone question?
I would say that's for you, Kat.
Okay. Yeah, so, I think the shifts, what we had talked about, the shifts in consumer behavior. And so there's a bunch that we're seeing. And so certainly for us, connectivity is more important than ever. And so we're taking that super seriously. We're really proud of how our network has stood up. I mean, the usage has gone up over 60%. So that's good. But then we also understand, and we are very focused on, there's going to be a lot of financial pressures, both for consumers and individuals and businesses. And so how do we help figure out where is the right place for things to be? There's going to be an awful lot of debt. And so how do we help customers navigate through debt? We have made a decision, no customers are being cut off right now, even if they're not paying. But those are things we're gonna have to find solutions to in the long term. We took off all the data limits of our any package and overage fees so people can use to the full advantage. So we tried to be super consumer friendly on that front, but there are certainly things that are gonna change. We think security is going to be a big trend. I'm sure everyone has noticed, and for all the small businesses out there, there are so many scams right now. It is just heartbreaking. That just kills me that people take this as a time to do not good in the world. And so we have a newsletter that goes out now for our business customers, just alerting them to all the things that they're seeing, just so that people can be careful. But please be careful. The easiest thing to do is look at where it's coming from. And if you don't recognize the address or there's something off, don't click on it. But security, unfortunately, is going to become a bigger trend. Work from home, we think, is a huge trend that is never going back. And so that one's a real interesting one for us on how do we support people as they move their offices to homes, or all of their employees work at home, what kind of tools. So we're looking at different types of software that we can offer customers. We've tried really hard to give what I call enterprise grade tools to small business. So we're always trying to think of what kinds of tools do you wish you had that the big companies have that we can scale down and make accessible for you. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about for sure.
That's amazing, Catherine. We just commend you for being such a brave leader. And this is what bravery looks like, friends. I just want to thank you on behalf of Wellness Innovate for coming on here and giving us your time and your wisdom. And so please reach out to Catherine if you have any other questions. But again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for being here, and thank you for what you're doing right now in our city.
Thanks. And we want to say thank you to all the small business and nonprofits. It's you guys that make the city a special place. And so thank you. Your jobs have been a whole lot tougher than ours right now. And any way we can help you well. And thank you, Connie, for the opportunity.
Oh, you're so welcome. So welcome.
Great.
Well, I want to introduce my boss and CEO of Wellness Innovate, who's going to introduce our next guest. Everyone, this is Abe Brown.
Hi, everybody. And of course, that was an incredible presentation. Thanks so much, Catherine, and great job. Really, really good. And love your passion. Feels like it, comes from the heart, and, that authenticity is so important. So much gratitude. And, really, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. And of course, really having worked in the nonprofit sector for a long time, one of those organizations that has almost a transcendent impact is the United Way of Calgary and area. And I think we all know that. They really have done a ton, I believe, under Karen's leadership to create a much more collaborative approach in the nonprofit space, because as strange as it might sound, often nonprofits do have a difficult time working together. Why? Because we're all humans, and humans, we can be competitive, we can have some of those challenges. And I really have appreciated watching, from a distance, Karen's leadership to bring people together. And, how do we rise strong? well, for sure, not on our own, but as we come together. So I'm just going to turn it over to Karen, the President and CEO of United Way of Calgary and area. And thank you so much, Karen, for your time today.
Great. Thank you so much, Abe. And it's so great to be here together with you all. I'm just so delighted to be networked in and connecting together and creating our own sense of community the best way that we can. And I just loved listening to Katherine. We have a young, energetic board member named Ashley Anderson, who is also from Shaw. And she always is thinking about collaborating and partnering, and it really starts with our board as well. So it's just great to see when we're all in it together. And, you know, it is really tough out there. And all of a sudden, you know, our world kind of changed overnight. On March 15th, there was a local state of emergency called, and we're part of the group that works with the Calgary Emergency Management Agency to help vulnerable populations. So there I was on March 15th thinking about when I ran all the emergency social services at United Way, or at the city, in 2013. And it kind of put me in a bit of like a flashback mode. It was like, I remember driving home, you know, from the flood the first night. It took me over 3 hours to get home because all of the roads were closed. And I had sort of this sense of, oh no, like I'm a brand new director of social services. Am I going to be able to handle this? And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? But the next day, you know, we just started getting busy. And one of the first things that we did is we arranged something called Boots on the Ground at McMahon Stadium. I don't know if some of you remember that. But at 3 a.m, Jason Cameron and I sent out social media to everyone. We had over 2,000 people show up at McMahon Stadium, boots on the ground, you know, ready to help Calgarians. And it was just such an overwhelming feeling of having so many people coming together as a community during that flood. And so there I was at the Emergency Operations Center, you know, 6 weeks ago with Tom Sampson and Mayor Nenshi, and we had the photo with the social distancing, and it was like, you know what, we can do this. You know, we did it before, and we are going to do it again. And so I really think about some of the qualities that I've learned in leadership to help get through a crisis. So I thought I would share a couple of those with you and then focus on how we're making those real during this pandemic. And so one of the real first ones that I wanted to talk about that Abe mentioned is collaboration. Like, you really have to start thinking about how to do business differently. And one of the first things that I talked to was actually James McAra from the food bank. And we kind of picked up the phone to each other and said, okay, like if you need anything, like just reach out, and vice versa. And we're going to try and, you know, work together in the system and make sure we've got, you know, everything taken care of, because we were trying to stand up an emergency response fund within 72 hours of the local state of emergency. But we couldn't do that by ourselves. We needed to work in a coordinated approach. So, you know, the Calgary Foundation tapped my shoulder and said, yeah, we want to come in, you know, for $1 million. The city was in, SEMA was in, the Calgary Homeless Foundation came on. I talked to Mike Meldrum from the Calgary Health Trust. And so we actually have a stewardship alliance that is actually looking at all these grant applications that are coming in, and we're working together to say, well, what programs here, what programs there, you know, where can we help triage people? And then where is this funding most needed? So it's been a really great way to get a handle of all the emergency things going on right now. And then we also checked in with all of our agency partners, like, how's it going out there? And really found out that things around food security, food delivery, things around personal protection equipment, things like janitorial services, those were really the things that people needed right away. And so we really got busy and got to that. The other thing that I really believe in is compassionate leadership. You know, I talk a lot about that. It really fits with my personality style. I have to say I come by it honestly from my dad. And, you know, I've learned a lot about my leadership from my dad. And the other side of that is having the courage, you know, and having that courage to kind of take that risk and kind of jump into it, you know, just like I did in 2013. I'd never experienced anything like that, but people were looking to me, and it's like, okay, how can I lean into this role that I have and have some courage to try some different things and to make some quick decisions, to be nimble, because you don't have a lot of time to do all the analysis and check everything. You've got to be able to kind of go with your gut and have some good intuition, and then pivot when you need to. We also try to make sure, just like Katherine was saying, really taking care of the staff. So right away, we started working remotely, and we're doing neat things. Like yesterday, we had a Zoom meeting, and, we try to use some humor. So my Chief Operating Officer, Beth Gignac, we actually call her COO, and she started off, she's singing, and, I have a dance background, so I'm kind of like dancing in the background, and we're just trying to create, sort of that virtual sense of community with the staff, so that they can feel that they're part of something and that they're cared for. We also set up this Facebook page, and as soon as we started working remotely, we said, okay, post a picture of your new co-workers, because people have got their kids. This one girl had a picture of her little baby toddler in diapers and cowboy boots. And she goes, look at how my co-worker showed up for work, And then I have a 21-year-old daughter and a Sheltie Collie. So I had pictures of them in these Amazon aprons that were matching and saying, here's my, new coworker. So we're trying, to have humor and try to have a little bit of fun with that. And when you're compassionate as a leader, you just want to acknowledge, what people are going through and what they're concerned about. We know there's a lot of unemployment and that people are laid off, and people are worried about that. So I think it's really great, just to put that out there, put that on the table and have a discussion about it. Compassion can be a really good way of dealing with things when people are frightened or worried about things. And if you're, working in that calm, compassionate way and with empathy, it can really go a long way in a crisis. And I really learned a lot about that during the flood. If we want to grow as leaders and really embrace these different experiences, we really got to tackle life with honesty and with courage. And really that is something that I try to do, and I try to call myself on that every day. And so we talked before about being authentic and embracing who you are, so here I am, at the control center, and I'm in this role, and I'm like, well, does that mean I have to show up like with my director hat on, and I'm, military, and who am I? But really, when I just showed up as myself, as Karen, it was much more successful and much easier for me to do. So using kindness, being confident, being able to laugh at yourself, when things, you've been at 15 Zoom meetings, and Beth and I would say, geez, I'm getting like flat butt now. So, you got to get up and kind of walk around, and you got to really catch yourself. So I really try to take care of myself and be a good role model. I have to work out every day. So I have an elliptical in my basement, and I'm really close to Fish Creek, and I have a dog, so I'm able to get outside once in a while. But I also really love music because of my dance background. So if you see me, sometimes I'm driving into work because Zoom doesn't really work at home for me. I have the tunes cranked, and I'm just singing away and, really trying to do things that make you feel good. I love meditation. I love that Calm app, being grateful. When you think about what happened in Nova Scotia, and then here we are, we are so fortunate in so many ways. So how can we look at that? And then the whole area of community and that sense of community that we really need to create right now. We need to feel connected as a community, as individuals. For us to be resilient, we need to feel connected to each other. And if we don't have that connection, that's where you lose that sense of purpose and that you're able to get through it. And it's really that elastic band that makes you more resilient, is when you can have that sense of connection to one another. So we have this great work that we do together with the city and Rotary called Community Hubs, and it's resident-led engagement in communities where we really try to help residents where they're at. So the staff are door knocking and leaving little notes on people's doors, you know, if you need help with food or if it's a senior that might need help. So there's all these great little neighborhood activities that are going on right now to really give people sort of that sense of belonging. So that's been really great. And, you know, we're trying to look out for every single person in the community. We want to really lift people up and really be that voice of hope and optimism. You know, I've had a lot of community leaders reach out to me and say, you know what, Karen, we need United Way right now. We need you to be that voice of hope and optimism. So that's how, you know, we are showing up, is trying to get that response fund out, trying to check in with our agencies, supporting leaders like Shirley Purves and Jeff Dyer for when they come with these great ideas, and helping support them, you know, to take that across the finish line, because things are going to be different, you know, after we get through this. So we're in an emergency response, immediate relief. You know, we're trying to lift up and think about recovery. What's that going to look like? And then that long-term resiliency, and how do you make space to kind of go through those three things together. And so as we move forward, I'm also part of the United Way network. You know, there's 1,800 United Ways in the world, you know, 79 in Canada. We're also trying to work with all levels of government. You know, yesterday, a great announcement by the federal government that $350 million will be invested into communities across Canada. It'll be flowing through United Ways, community foundations, and the Red Cross. You know, we've had money from the federal government for isolated seniors. The government of Alberta announced a matching program so that people can come forward and donate, and then they're matched by the government. We've had donors coming together to create a match. And so when you think about that spirit of the donor community, government, agencies, we've got small businesses like Local Laundry and other like Fresh Roots and different groups like that coming forward and donating. We are all in this together, and together we will really get through it. And so think about that in terms of your mindset and how you want to show up. I just love anything to do with mindset. And then that creativity leads to innovation. And so we've been running some responsible disruption webinars through our social impact lab to really help inspire people to be creative and to think about how we're going to do things differently. So those are some of my observations and leadership that I wanted to share with you. And I just wanted to ask you guys a question in terms of, you know, what gives you hope right now? And so if you can think about, you know, what gives you hope? Hopefully that will give you some inspiration in terms of your reason for being and what difference we can be making.
Karen, I love that so much. What gives you hope? And if anyone has any specific questions for Karen, perhaps you could just look in the chat.
Sure.
Respond. But Karen, I'm a dancer too.
What?
I am.
What kind of dancing do you do?
Jazz? Well, I break dance.
Break dance.
I taught it decidedly jazz for over 13 years. But I say that you and myself challenge James, Abe, Graham, and Tony to a dance battle later, okay?
I would be totally up for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I see there is one question about the perspectives of the 300 million. What I do know about the 300 million is, you know, we'll probably get about a tenth or so of that in Alberta. And it'll probably be, again, focused on vulnerable populations and really working with our agencies, those critical provider agencies. And so we actually see it working well with our current COVID community response fund that we have out in the community right now.
So encouraging, so encouraging. Well, Karen, please feel free to keep interacting with Karen in the chat. But Karen, I just want to say on behalf of us that we're just so honored that you're here and for how you're leading with this idea of community and compassion. You're just a beautiful soul. I just absolutely adore you.
Thank you. Well, I adore you guys, and thank you for having me and for putting this on. I can't wait to hear what the others have to say.
Me too. Well, I get to introduce our next speaker, which is Graham Sherman from Toolshed Beer. I have known Graham for a while. Our boys are buddies. And so I've seen Graham at home and I've seen Graham at work. And I gotta say, he's the same guy you see at work as he is all the time. He is a top-notch person and he's innovative and he's always thinking ahead. Graham, tell us how you're functioning right now. Just got to unmute.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now? Nice. First of all, am I the only one drinking beer in this meeting? Second thing I wanted to say was, Connie, that dance-off is a horrible, horrible idea. I'm the worst dancer in the history of the world. Even at my wedding, just before my wedding, I broke my leg in 2 spots, and I was so grateful that at my wedding I'd have a cast and I couldn't dance. So much to my wife's chagrin, I didn't even get to dance at our wedding. So anyway, we'll have to talk about that offline. The other thing I wanted to say is Katherine Emberly still on the phone? Is she still on the call? She is? Nice. I wanted to point something out. It's amazing hearing the 2 speakers up till now share what they've got. It's unbelievable to hear companies that I cherish how they react at this crazy time we live in. But I wanted specifically Katherine to know that I'm not one of those big companies. We don't have any kind of huge contingency plan or plan. Hence the name. When I started, I've always been a Shaw customer, and I declare Shaw the provider of internet and phone services for entrepreneurs. And the reason I say that is because when we were destitute and broke, I had my home in foreclosure at times of building my business. Shaw is that one service provider that you can call when your internet gets cut off and say, I paid it, I promise, and they believe you and turn it back on. Without having to see evidence that you've actually paid the bill. So I cherish Shaw for helping me get through the early struggles of getting my business up and running. But for those that
calling them right, I'm calling them right now.
Yeah. No, that's a big thing. Most places say, "Show me the bill, prove it." Yeah, but not Shaw. So thanks, Shaw. For those that don't know, I come from a long background of having to overcome ridiculous barriers. I used to live in a war zone before Toolshed. I used to run government military IT infrastructure in Afghanistan. I started this brewery wanting to get out of the war zone. I've got 3 beautiful boys at home that my wife and kids are not a fan of the job that I used to do. And I just am so in love with craft beer and brewing for the community around me, and so I'm going to actually show you something here really quickly to give you kind of a look at what the business actually is all about. When I started brewing, this is my little original homebrew system made out of stolen Big Rock kegs. And I have since apologized to Big Rock, I promise, and bought them new kegs. But to turn that little homebrew system into this brewery now is sized in the top 5% of breweries in North America, and we're not a company that has ever had money or ever been in any kind of position to do anything except bootstrap. So I've been spending my whole life trying to overcome barriers and just try to get to the point where I'm going around and sharing the stories of how we've gotten it done so often over the time. So when this Corona era hit me, it hit me really freaking hard because there's no money in our bank. We just came out of the winter having no reserves. Winter's the worst time for a brewery. We're sitting here with everything just drained down to zero. We just can't wait for March and April to start picking up so we can get through the summer and continue to pay our staff and pay our bills. And I think it's a lot for those of you out there that are listening that own a small business. We were not in a position to say what would be just the right thing to do and have the resources to be able to implement plans that would sound great and help the staff. I actually had to let all my staff go. So we had up to 50 employees throughout the summer, you know, the busy months, and now I have 4. And you know, when you I was reading an article recently about kind of the steps of grief, and it's like denial and anger and bargaining and despair and finally acceptance. And I had actually reached the level of acceptance, and I thought we were done. I thought all the stuff that I've gotten to travel around the world and tell the story of how we've overcome these barriers, and this is the one that ends us. It was a pretty horrifying thing. But I know now there's a couple more things on that list. That process of grief is not over if you're an entrepreneur. There's a couple more. You got to find new opportunities, and you got to kick ass. And I think I just got to the point after doing the layoffs, thinking about how we were going to get any kind of support from the government, trying to just wrap my head around all this stuff. You get to that acceptance level of thinking, is this it, or am I done? And eventually you got to snap out of it and think, bullshit, I'm not fucking done. I gotta think differently. I gotta start getting into my head. There's actually people out there that are kicking ass right now, and it's bad for me right now, but that's a relative perspective piece. And I started to hear people almost competing over who was getting it worse, who's suffering the most. And people are saying, oh, well, I lost my job, so did my wife. And I was thinking, oh yeah, well, I lost my entire income. My wife works at a dental office. She lost everything. And the government shut down almost all of my customers. Like 75% of my customers, restaurants, bars, you know, pubs, nightclubs, basically anybody who buys our beer was shut down by the government. So how the hell could it be worse than that? And I'm like, okay, I got to get my head out of that type of thinking on we're almost competing for who's got the worst story. And I got to start focusing on who's actually killing it out there, because I've really enjoyed the strategic relationships that we've developed over the years that have been mutually beneficial for us and for the partner that we've worked with. And I one of the things that really stood out to me is who's killing it right now? Food delivery systems. Like you think about guys like spud.ca. I order food every week. I loved when I found out that you can actually get all the food to your house, and I don't have to shop. I don't have to come up with meal recipes, but they're killing it. And I reached out to them, and turns out they're up something like 600% revenue year over year, and they can't even get all the orders out to people. They don't have enough space for even the pallets of food that are coming to their warehouse, not enough trucks, drivers, cold storage, nothing. And so about 1,000 orders a day are not getting done because Spud doesn't have the resources to get that done. So my sales dropped to about 10% of what they were previously. But you know what I got? 8,000 square feet of extra space and a 1,500 square foot cold room and staff that have all been laid off that I'd give anything to get back to work. And I mean, this could be perfect. What if we could turn our brewery into a food preparation auxiliary facility for Spud? And so what's happened since then has been so unbelievable. It's amazing, because they got an actual contract from the government to provide these essential kits to frontline workers and to healthcare professionals that aren't able to go out shopping and shouldn't be exposed to anything more than they already are. So for them being at home and having Spud being able to deliver these essential kits, there's projections of doing up to 1,000 of these kits a day. So it's a pretty crazy thing to think we're preparing food kits for people out in the province, but it's turned into something so cool that Justin Trudeau just exploded. I think that this time really needs is nobody's got the crystal ball. I joke with everybody, say, oh, I totally saw this coming and I had the plan all ready to go. Listen to me, here's what you got to do next. Because nobody on earth can say that. So as we go through this process of grief of how our businesses are struggling, and we get through that point and think, who's killing it? How can we partner with them? How can we do something that's never been done before? I don't know. Now these ideas are coming to mind that I've never thought of. And so I look back, even this morning, looking back over the last week, over how the staff that I have kept on, the 4 core staff that came in, I feel like we're also connected. It's like we're in the zombie apocalypse and we're safe inside the brewery and we're working at such a high level. Never before Corona could I have said to my staff, hey, let's get rid of everybody and us 4 will crush it. And we're going to achieve such great things, just the 4 of us. And they go, yay, let's do it. So there's an opportunity here for us to connect as a team in a way that never would have been possible without this crazy scenario. And thinking outside of the box to think about who's killing it out there, how can we align with them and create something that's truly never been done. And I know, of course, nothing is going to be the same when we come out of this thing. But one of the things that's not going to be the same is I'm going to continue to order food online for a long time. Even when the government says, great, get back to going to the pub, I think we're still going to order food. So I think I've just come up with an auxiliary business. And I set the, this is a real ship with a really cool local company that's just down the block from us. So I would say that for me as a small business owner was literally up against the ropes, and I mean, that's the story of my freaking life. I can't wait for the time where I'm not having to solve some freaking seemingly insolvable problem in order to just stay alive. I know now that these types of opportunities define us as entrepreneurs, and when they pop up like this, I have to say, here we go again, what's up? And this is the biggest one in my lifetime. But what I know now is everyone listening today is going to look back in a few years and say, man, that was a crazy one. And we're going to judge ourselves on how we reacted right now. So the decisions we make right now are going to come back years from now, as far as, did we lay down? Did we just coast? Did we just get pissed off at what we think the government support is? Or did we get shit done? And so I'm pretty pumped about what I guess the way of thinking of who's killing it, how can we partner, how can we get strategic alliances. That's shifted the way I've been thinking about this thing. And I don't want to say that now all of a sudden I look at it and say, wow, thank God for coronavirus, because that's a horrible thing. But we almost need a punch in the face every once in a while as a business owner to really change the way we think. So that's it from a small business owner, I guess.
Graham, I don't know about anybody else, but I just feel so pumped up and ready to think outside the box, and thank you for killing it. And I just think that you've always been a real outside the box kind of guy. We're just so proud of you. And I think whatever we can do to buy some beer today, after you hear that, you give this man some money and buy some beer.
I appreciate that, Connie. This is not a sales pitch for Toolshed. I want to pour into this event with just the struggles that I've gone through as a small business owner as well. So thank you for letting me share.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. We're thrilled. And I am so thrilled to introduce our next guest as well, Tony McGrath. Theatre Grand is my favorite theater in Calgary. And I've produced one theater show there. And Tony keeps saying, you got to come back. And now I really do need to come back, Tony. And he took that theater from a place of desolation to thriving. And Tony is no stranger to overcoming incredible odds. And so, Tony, we're just so thankful that you're here to share whatever you want to share on your experiences of pushing through and rising strong.
Good morning. Yeah, it's good afternoon, actually. I live and work in a basement now, so I'm never fucking sure what time of day it is anymore. I walked upstairs the other day and the sun was shining. I said, when did that happen? Anyway, I got to follow Graham, and I don't know how I do that, but I met Graham at a business event in Brooks, Alberta one time. He was speaking out there, and Marcy and I were 2 of the 8 in the audience. It was a great presentation, but I have nothing prepared for this, and I never do. So I'm gonna talk a little bit from the heart here to the best of my ability. And I first want to talk about the arts. And I know everybody's going to groan a little at this point, because the arts is one of those things that we as a city and as a nation consider a luxury. And I did. I'd never worked in the arts and I'd never run a theatre. Where I grew up, like, art was soccer. That was literally it in the area of Birmingham I grew up in. So I've developed a very deep understanding of people in the arts over the last year and a half. And I want to pay some respect to them in the current pandemic. Across the planet on a daily basis in the news, you will see artists giving their skill and time and enthusiasm for free. Nothing asked in return, no promotion, no marketing, no money, no grants, no nothing. They're on their balconies playing violins and cellos or singing. We've seen our own CPO here in a face-off with the symphony up in Edmonton, and that's spread nationally now. We see artists constantly now online playing from their living room. And these people are all adding to our mental well-being for free and without being asked. And I've seen that consistently across the arts over the time I've been blessed to work there. And business generally doesn't treat the arts terribly well. They'll ask our artists in this city to perform for free based on the exposure that they're going to get, which is bullshit. You don't ask a web developer to do that. You don't ask a restaurateur to give his food for free for the exposure, but they get asked regularly. And I see them across the planet actually stepping up in large numbers as organizations and individuals to help us feel a little bit better in all of this. So that's the first thing I want to say is kudos to our artists in Calgary, our arts organizations, and to artists across the planet. I can't play anything. I can dance really well, James and Graham. I'm all for the dance off, and I think, Connie, we should do it at the Grand when we reopen. We'll get these boys on the stage. You can give them a little training in hip hop, and we should do it. I've got the gold chains and the beanie hats available, so we can do that. So the Grand, 12th of March, our event started cancelling, and by the 13th of March, we were done, literally. So in a few hours, we went from thriving to closed. Our revenue completely disappeared for the foreseeable future. So I'm pretty much a team of two now at the theatre, and we are a business. And we're in the business of art, and we put over $1 million a year into the economy as one theatre in this city. So, you know, it's not, oh, what a shame they've closed. When we close, it impacts contractors, artists, bar managers, our ticketing staff, our ticketing company. So it has a significant impact in this city. So it's not oh, what a shame we closed. We're like many other organizations, just like Toolshed. When we close, the impact is wider than just our staff and just our theatre. So it happened very quickly and very deeply, almost within hours. And I'm a little more vintage than a lot of people in business. This is my fourth major business cycle in my career. And they've all been gruesome in their own way. Marcy and I, we built an insurance company from scratch here in Calgary, and it's federally approved. And in 2008, we were out in Toronto and we pitched, and a major company had decided to back us. And that was in September. And I think pretty much as we were flying home from Toronto to Calgary, the world collapsed, and we never heard from those guys again. So I'm kind of used, like Graham, to, you know, bad news and rejection is just part of your life as an entrepreneur and in business. It's just one of those things. So, but I've never seen anything as quick as this, and with so much uncertainty as this, because business cycles, you can always say, well, it's winter now, but spring always comes after winter. Might take a little longer, but this has created a real air of uncertainty of what we're even going to be doing or what we're going to look like after this. So it is different, and you know, for our younger business people and our younger employees, this may be your first major business cycle. And just to put it in context, it's the worst I've ever seen. So I think I look at large businesses like Shaw, and I love Katherine. I've spoken with her on a panel before. They make me feel totally inadequate as a leader, because I got no contingency plans. Like, I got nothing. I got no plans on any level other than, oh shit, we've got no revenue next week. And I'm kind of like Graham in that way. So, oh my God, like, we don't have an emergency plan to put into action other than my staff got laid off. That's pretty much it. I need to reduce revenue like yesterday, expense like yesterday. So I do think this is a very unique opportunity for us as businesses if we choose to take it. Because I think right now it's a chance for our business to kind of reimagine and pivot. We do it, you know, it's a chance for me as a leader to do a bit of an inventory in a positive and negative way of like, where are we at? What have we been doing? Because very often in the throes of running a business, all strategy gets thrown out of the door. All sorts of planning gets thrown out of the door. You do a 2-day retreat once a year. You build a strategy plan and put it in a drawer. In fact, as a consultant, that's what I've been doing for a living for quite a long time. But this is actually a real chance to look at the strengths and weaknesses in your business. And I think you can actually sit down as a leader and draft a basic strategic plan around what are you going to look like when you come out of this. And fully acknowledging you don't know what the circumstances are going to look like. But, you know, I very often find I just don't have time for that shit. I don't have time to work on strategy. I don't have time to think of anything other than the sump pump in the basement isn't working and the alarm system isn't working today. And oh shit, we've got a show tomorrow. Like that's pretty much running day to day. And I think a lot of businesses are like that. So I always look in envy at businesses that actually do any planning. And I quite often think, nah, I'm sure they don't really do that. I'm sure they just say they do that. But I know Katherine does. So I get envious. And I think these principles also apply to us on a human level. I think it's a good time to do an inventory of me personally, you know, my strengths and weaknesses, my character flaws, the things that I do consistently that piss people off, working on my body language a little bit. You know, it's great being positive and enthusiastic and motivational, but you know, being a leader it's a fucking lonely business. And I know you leaders out there understand that. There are times when there's nobody asks me how I'm doing. And there's nobody who checks in and says, hey, Tony, you know, when you say that, I don't react well to it. So it's a good time for me to look at my shortcomings in my communication skills and just the way I handle myself in life. And I think there is a real danger for us right now. This is a gift of time. And there's a real danger we get to the end of 12 or 8 weeks or however long this takes and we go, shit, I just didn't use that time well. You know, I spent my whole time worrying. And I spent a bit of time mentoring young entrepreneurs, and I was talking to an incredible young lady yesterday who runs a travel company, and we talked about just don't waste this time. Don't throw it away worrying about what the future looks like. Embrace the uncertainty. And bizarrely, I spoke at Creative Mornings 2 weeks before this happened, and I talked about embracing uncertainty because The whole concept of certainty in our life is absurd. It doesn't exist. Like it literally, I don't know literally whether I'm going to be alive this afternoon. Like my business at the Grand closed in a couple of hours. I didn't expect that. We were pottering along quite nicely, thank you very much. So embracing uncertainty and using that this time well is really important. If you don't meditate, try it for a minute. Breathe. If you don't like the word meditation, call it breathing. Stop and breathe for a minute, and next day do 2 minutes. Just start the practice of that. And I hate the cliche stuff around mindfulness and meditation. Like I'm really crap at it. Like I mean to do it, and then I get mad that I don't have a meditation practice, which kind of defeats the whole purpose in the first place. But I've learned I can breathe from time to time, and the periods of breathing literally start to grow a little bit, and suddenly I'm controlling my breath a little longer. If you want to call it meditation or mindfulness, I'm happy with that. But I'm actually really crap at the discipline of those things. So, but the least thing I want to do is get mad about not having the practice of having a peaceful meditation. So I think if you're not a fitness freak, and like I don't mind keeping fit if it's not too much hard work. You know, I'm one of those guys who looks at another fella on a treadmill thinking I might get a six-pack by not doing it. So, but I think it's a good time to start a bit of a fitness practice. You know, even if it's walking, and I love walking. I never miss doing 10,000 steps a day, and then I start walking from home again, and I stop doing it. It doesn't make any sense. So I think there's a lot we can do right now in very small ways that add up to a bigger sum of wellness. You know, and I'm not really suggesting that we all become gurus of meditation, because that's the last thing I am. There's a great book I learned from as a leader, and I was an infantry officer when I was younger, and I learned a lot from the military about empathy and looking after my people, which sounds almost contradictory to the whole principle of the military. But Simon Sinek wrote a great book, and it's getting old now, I know, but it's called Leaders Eat First. And that was literally the principle that we were taught leadership. It was, before I went to bed, I needed to look after my men. Were they fed? Were their feet in good condition? We were the infantry. We marched on our feet. Have they got ammunition? Do they know what they're supposed to do next day? Are they warm and comfortable? Is next day planned out? And I think that's a great principle for any leader. And we've heard it from all of the leaders who've spoken before me. You've got to be well. You need to make sure your feet are in good condition and that you're fed, because you've got to be an example to your people. And one of the principles we were also taught was that my people as an infantry officer were going to look to me when we were under fire and in chaos. Because all the planning in the world means nothing when the bullets start to fly. The radios don't work, we got the wrong ammunition, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, facing the wrong way, and generally that was my fault because I couldn't read a map. But these are essentials to you as a leader right now, making sure you look after you so you're in a position to lead. So I'm really, like, I'm no expert in any of this. I have fucked up more times in my life than I care to remember, personally and in business. But there are things that I've learned over the years that keep coming back to me. And it's in these circumstances when they become most important. I got to do a podcast with Dave Kelly and Jim Button not very long ago in the theatre. We call them Conversations from the Grand, and I got no grand right now. But two amazing men, and Graham knows Jim Button really well, and he has health challenges. If you speak to Jim, you would never know that. He feels it's his obligation to his family and to Calgary to look after himself, even though he has a diagnosis that is fairly dire. And Dave Kelly, like, just him and Jim have been doing online shows during COVID, listening sometime. And Michelle Cameron Coulter's been doing the same. Like, there are Calgarians out there doing shit for free. And I think, you know, I had a great poem to read at the end of this, but I've run out of time, I think. So,
well, you know what, Tony, we would, really have appreciated your vulnerability and your honesty. That's actually why I invite you anywhere I get a chance to invite you. I invite you because you do share from the heart, and
Yeah.
you lead from the heart. But and the things that you've said here are just so important. And
Can I take a minute with it's from Roosevelt. I promise you it takes a minute, but I think it's really relevant today.
sure.
Okay. So this is Roosevelt, as we know, was a leader in a time of the worst possible circumstances. So he actually spoke and he said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least failed while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those whose cold and timid souls neither know victory nor defeat." That's it. That's Roosevelt. So that's from a great leader.
Yeah, that had to be said, Tony. Thank you.
It's called Step in the Arena.
Step in the Arena.
Yeah.
Excellent. No,
Thanks
you.
for letting me share.
No, beautiful, beautiful. And Tony, I would really love for you to post in the chat the link where people can donate to the Grand right now.
Sure. Yeah.
Some will want to support you, and we want to stand behind you. So please do that. And everyone, reach out to Tony because he's an absolutely amazing, beautiful soul. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. And our Calgary company Benevity are taking the donations, and our Albertan Bank ATB are matching up to 50% for any not-for-profit at the moment. So.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Abe is going to introduce our next guest, and I just want to let you know you'll get your full 15. Don't you worry.
All right.
All right. So, thanks for that, Tony. That was unbelievable. So good. And we really just appreciate your authenticity. And that's awesome. Another very authentic leader is our next guest, and his name is Gil Carlos. Gil is the owner and one of the co-founders of Broken Yolk, which is the best brunch location in the city. And they've got 3 across Calgary. They started it in the middle of a really tough time in Calgary, 2016. And they grew from 1 to 3. And through COVID-19, they've been able to keep their operations going. Gil is a heart-centered leader who cares about people at a profound level. And so I'm just going to turn over to you, Gil, and can't wait to hear what you got to share.
I hope you guys could hear me. I cracked a beer for Graham because I felt bad that he was the only one drinking. So thanks, Graham, for making me crack a beer at 1 in the afternoon. Thank you to everyone at home taking time out of your day. To all these leaders that are speaking at this virtual conference with me, this is an honor to be speaking beside all of you. And then Connie and Abe, thanks for this opportunity for allowing me to share my experiences with everyone. To start off with, I guess I want to connect with all leaders watching right now. And I want you to know that you are resilient, you are strong, and I believe that you were built for this challenge like we all were. Your family, your team, your community, they're all leaning on you for guidance and leadership. And for me, I wanted to define leadership just from my own perspective to begin with here. Leadership to me is servant leadership, or to serve others. And so I often ask myself, how do you expect to serve others effectively if my own mental health is not in the right mindset? And so in order to lead others through this crisis, as a leader, you have to be mentally prepared and mentally strong. And I think quickly we all realized that this was going to be a marathon. And so we had to prepare our minds. And so 3 things that I want to share with everyone that have worked for my mental health during this crisis. The first has been my faith. And, to define faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And so the first thing I would say is, have faith in yourself. Trust your education, trust your experience, trust your training, trust that all the adversity and struggle that you had to endure to get to where you are today, lean on those past experiences just to help you get through these challenging times. And the second is, have faith in your team. Have complete confidence in your team that they will support you every step of the way. Some of them actually may even surprise you. What I've learned is that people will step up during this crisis. Have faith in your community. Trust that the community will rally together. These last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen the community come together with so many creative acts of kindness. It's been truly amazing to see. And then last, have faith in God. And I don't want to say this is for everyone, and nor do I want to put this on everyone. But to be honest with you guys, I feel safe because of my faith. I have peace, I have strength, and I have courage. And with my faith, I feel mentally prepared, to last however long this crisis lasts for. The second thing that has helped my mental health during this crisis has been courage. And to define courage is strength in the face of pain or grief. This virus, COVID-19, it hasn't spared any human on this planet. It's impacted, hospitals. It's impacted local businesses. It's impacted our loved ones, our daily lives, to say the least. This virus has caused a ton of pain around the world, and obviously in Calgary here. And with pain, it creates change. And so, as humans, I don't think we enjoy pain or grief, and so we choose courage. In the beginning, when COVID-19 started, I think honestly, we all got knocked down with the shock and fear. I know I did when the virus first started to spread, but since then, I think many of us have chosen to stand up and take control back. To be honest with you, there's this burning desire inside of me, and I hope that it's inside of a lot of you, to not let this be the end of your story. This is not our story. It's just a small part of it, and that burning desire to fight back and to stand up is what I call courage. It's what helps me get up every single day to fight for my family, to fight for, our company, our team, and this community. And so the third thing that has helped me with my mental with my mental health during this crisis has been taking action. And so after the shock that sets in the beginning, we all should have experienced fear. And hopefully that was a good fear and not a bad fear, because, that good fear pushed me into taking action. And the first action that I took was making sure that my own immediate family was healthy. We had food, shelter, and all the basic necessities. Without that, I don't think I'd be mentally in the right frame of mind to help others. And so I had to make sure that was key for me. The second action that I took was I literally checked on our entire team and every employee that works for the Broken Yolk, because I had to think, do they have food? Do they have shelter? Do they have income coming in? Do they have the basic necessities to last, however long this lasts for? And so what we did was we made a long list of priority people who we were concerned with, and so we simply just reached out to them. The third thing that I did was, adapted to this new normal. I think like many others here, we all have our daily routines. And so all of our routines were thrown out the window when this whole thing came about. And so I had to ask myself, how can I change my new routine? And so for me, that included movement, diet, and rest. And so adapting to a new routine was something that I had to instill from an early onset. And then the fourth action was simply with the restaurants, with our business, was can we stay open? Is it viable? Can we keep our doors open? How do we minimize our losses? Can we even break even during this time? After a week, and we saw how fortunate we were with our loyal customers, we asked ourselves, how could we give back to people in need? And we chose to give back to Brown Baking for Kids right away. My brother and I growing up, we utilized lunch programs, and so it just made complete sense for us to give back to that program. And we also asked ourselves, how can we grow our brand awareness at this time? Can we develop more brand loyalty? Is there an opportunity right now to expand our audience? And so we had to pivot and think of different streams of revenue. After a few weeks now with this new normal with work and with the businesses, we're continuously looking for ways to improve and looking for ways to grow. And we're constantly adapting and constantly changing. And so I guess I attest this to, growing up, I played a lot of basketball, and some of the best coaches that I played for were able to make changes in between the games. They were able to call timeouts. They would make changes to the schemes like at halftime. And so, I'm not saying that this crisis is a game, like by all means, but it's important that we are adapting and pivoting at this very crucial moment. The next thing was the mental health of our entire team. And so I guess everything that I just had planned for myself, my own family, very simply put, like I just share all those strategies with our entire team. Every experience, every knowledge, every training that I've learned, I've just passed on to them. And I ask that you guys do the same with your own team. I had personally spoken to majority of our staff to make sure that they had a simple plan to survive this crisis. Do they have a new routine? Do they have food? Do they have shelter? Do they have income coming in? And so I wanted to make sure that they had a very safe home environment. Their mental health was, very important to me. The second thing that I did was from the very onset of this, we communicated and we were very transparent. We communicated a lot, almost daily. And, if you are struggling, it's okay to just say that you are. If your business is in trouble, it's all right to be truthful. I honestly think the more truthful you are about the situation, the more respect your team will have for you. The way I look at it is that, you are responsible for other people's lives. And the more upfront you can be, the easier it is for them to make decisions for themselves. And then, have a little bit of humility. I don't have all the answers. No, I don't think any of us have all the answers, or, even the WHO. But, what I do know is that we will find a way. I did tell our staff, I am scared, just like they all are. But I also told them that I wasn't going to give up on them. I wasn't going to give up on the company. And I believe that this gave them, peace of mind, and it gave them mental strength to fight this with me. One thing that I would do, I guess, pre-crisis, I've been doing this for a couple of years now. I know Tony touched up on it with just breathing and stuff. And anytime that you have a negative thought or negative energy or feel a little bit overwhelmed, I would just take a second and I would inhale and think of something that you need. And then I'd hold my breath at the top and then, exhale something that isn't serving you. For example, for me, I would inhale courage and I would exhale doubt. And, I know it's going to sound silly, but I actually invite all of you at home to take a moment and think of two things for you and just give it a try, just take a slow inhale and exhale. And then with each breath, hold it a little bit longer and exhale a little bit louder. With that, I hope that you guys experience just a quick reset of your mind, because it really helps me, and it just gives you a clear mind to tackle on whatever situation you're trying to solve. And so I've used that pre-crisis, and it's helped me a lot, when this whole thing started and when I feel anxious and overwhelmed. And so with that being said, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys choose, faith, have courage, and take action, and stay safe and healthy. Thank you, guys.
Oh, Gil, thank you so much. That was beautiful. And I am very impressed with your generosity. Finding ways to be generous right now. We just, Abe and I are just right behind you, cheering you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And please, folks, let's support these local businesses, right? I mean, the Grand with Tony, and Tool Shed with Graham, and of course Gil and Broken Yolk. You can pick up, take out, you can do delivery. It's pretty amazing, and so we gotta keep these folks going through this crisis, because they're the fabric of our community. So I guess on that note, it gives me a lot of pleasure to introduce our next guest. And, James McAra is the president and CEO of Calgary Food Bank. James is just a tremendous leader. I have the pleasure of having, breakfast with James from, every couple of months. And I'm just so impressed with the fact that he, my opinion, James will probably dispute this, but what a great combination of head and heart in James. Being in the nonprofit sector for a long time, you see some who are really heart, some who are really head. And I appreciate that, with the vast reach of the food bank, hundreds of thousands of Calgarians, right, that they impact every year. James, keeps his heart there. But he also uses his head. And so welcome, James. Thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you, Abe. Good afternoon, everybody. Graham, Gil, Tony, Abe, Connie, Katherine, everybody, Karen, you guys just make this suck. Because now I'm behind you, and you guys have all said the good stuff. Oh, we do this. Oh, I'm doing that. Keep everybody going. This is awesome. Look at what's going on. And then I get I won't use the word that Tony typically uses. So, and I think I heard Graham use that word too. It was French, FCUK or something. That's a clothing company. That's it.
It was dance. We both
dance.
Used it, yeah.
Thank you. So I have a sign in our living room that says no dad dancing. And it tends to be a rule. However, my background is I have a master's in physical education. I'm an athletic therapist. So I often say that it's an arts degree with coordination is what I have. And everybody can acknowledge that, no, I can't dance. I can't sing. I can't do anything like that. But I can people. And that tended to be what I tended to do, was looking at this whole thing. So when we went into COVID, it was very interesting that as an organization that sort of focuses on crisis and vulnerable individuals, you're dealing with it every day. My grandfather's a firefighter, and he used to say, you know what, he goes to this fire one day, and it's the 1935, and he lived in Aberdeen, in a port town. There's a fire on the dock. They drive down to the port. They go, we're not going to pull the hoses from over there. We're just going to throw the pump in the water, and then we're going to use the water, in the port to do this. And so they get everything. They run down to the edge of the port. They fire the pump out into the water, and the tide is out. Do you know how hard it is to get a large metal instrument that sucks huge volumes of mud suddenly to put out a fire? Doesn't work so well. So now you have to plan. Now you have to scramble. How are we going to do this? There's still a fire, but suddenly we've lost all of our fire suppression ability. So when COVID started, it was quite interesting, because we watched as an entire sector collapsed on itself. We watched as not-for-profits, charities, community organizations suddenly didn't have any revenue. And it's really difficult. But yet there were a group of organizations who, even though they weren't recognized as critical to what's going on, had to keep running. So until 3 weeks ago, the food bank, or a food bank, was not considered an essential service. Imagine that. So they make this decision and said, you can't have gathering. Okay, it takes 50 people a day just to turn on the food bank. And now we can't gather. So what are we supposed to do? So it went from 250 to 50 to 5. And in the background, you're having conversations with all sorts of other people going, don't touch us. Just, we'll be safe. Let us do this. And I think in that, we saw a lot of leadership come forward. We saw people recognizing what was the right thing to do versus what was the policy thing to do. And it wasn't without any extra conversations. Everybody had the conversation to say, is this what we need to happen in our community right now? That was very important. So the whole thing became about change, how we embrace change. For some of you who have met me and others who don't, I'm dangerous because my stated goal for a long time was world domination. And people said that was very arrogant. And I said, but I can't explain it. So what I had to go to was the whole idea of we're going to close a food bank because we'll get rid of the issues around it. And then we'll write a book. And then we're going on a book tour. But the book tour will only be 10 degrees above and below the equator because I've lived in the Arctic. So what I found was that a lot of people that I talked to could recognize that. They could actually be part of it. So they said, hey, can I write a chapter? Can I, do some editing? I got an idea for the cover. Are you going by sea? Because we need a yacht if you're going to stay in the equator area. And that's the kind of infection that started to happen in parallel with COVID. So within 48 hours, an organization that serves, let's say, about 800 to 1,000 individuals every day with food, shares food with hundreds of agencies in our city. We became Canada, or in my case, the world's largest drive-through food bank. And in our mind, we created pictures of this with everybody that was around us. We said, well, what does it look like to you? Well, it reminds me of the old days where you would drive into A&W with your family, and as a kid, you'd get to eat in the back of the car. Mom and dad would be in the front or whatever. You'd roll down your window and they'd bring out this tray and put it on. And you made sure that you didn't roll your window all the way down because the tray would fall on the concrete beside you. So you became an expert at leaving your window open just enough for the tray of food when it comes. Other people looked at it and said, well, wait a second, this is kind of like one of those machines where you go up and you punch a button in and then you get a food sample out of here. Somebody else said, well, wait a second, we can't have anybody touching, but we need to make this really large. And it was the culture of not just doing good, it was doing great and letting people embrace that. So we brought a whole bunch of people together in the food bank and we had a meeting and we said, what are we going to do? And then we let loose. And we put everybody and said, well, what do we do this? Oh, if we do a drive-through, we need to do this. If we need to shop and sort hampers together, we need to do this. We can't have people touching. Wait a second, that means that we need to move this over here and that over there. How are people going to get a hold of us? If they walk up or they're in transit, then we're going to need a phone. So let's get a phone booth. Did you know we have a phone booth at the food bank? Yeah, we have a phone booth. It's right in front because we couldn't let people into the building. So we had to actually get people to contact us. So we have shelters outside. We have a carnival shelter, if you can imagine, as an area where people can walk up to. We have Calgary Transit. If you're from Calgary Transit, don't tell anybody. Because all of a sudden, the bus that would go by the food bank would mysteriously slow down as it left the first stop. So people would come from the C train station on 39th. They'd get to the food bank, and then the bus would go really, 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 really slowly around the block till it was at the bus stop on the other side of the food bank. And during that time, mysteriously, people could walk up, say hello, get the food that they needed, and get back onto the bus again. Now, if we had said to Calgary Transit, could you slow a bus down? They would have laughed at us. And so we didn't ask, but the drivers of the bus did it. These are the incredible things that happen. And to us and to me watching it, it's leadership. It's letting people around you be leaders. Everyone else has expressed that the title leader can be very lonely. I agree, but it can also be very powerful in terms of what you allow others to do. So a leader is not an executive. Sometimes it's the person who knows when to get out of the way. And sometimes that's your leadership role, is getting out of the way. I always say that I'm lazy, I'm going to have a coffee, let me know when something happens, because that will be leadership. But if something does need to happen, be prepared to roll up your sleeves and get in there. Because you at that point need to be led. And I think Gil's comment about servant leadership, I love that, because that is the piece. You have to know when to lead and you have to know when to be led. But you always make sure that everyone else is looked after. So talking to people when you have food safety, really difficult. So we started with physical safety. My daughter found a poster online that said, keep a llama between you and every other person. So what we did for the first week is we walked around asking for llamas. If you can imagine a building full of people going around going llama, 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 it's crazy. Last week we had a very large 4.5-foot long fork. So people were walking around with this massive fork going, hey, fork off. Make sure we got the fork in distance between you. These fun things that reinforce the very difficult conversations and give people permission to have them. You need physical distancing. You need food safety. You can't just say to somebody, oh, here's some free food. Great, it's really not free and you can't touch it for 48 hours because the COVID could live on the packaging. So now you actually have to triage it to make sure that it can get out. So food safety becomes even more important, but you have to find a way to let others lead those pieces. So listening to people, the empathy that comes through that is so critical in terms of what goes on. I have a whole bunch of notes. Looking at time, but that's not going to be worth it. What I'd like to share with everybody is that the leadership that is sitting here today and the leadership we see in our community didn't just happen. It's a group of people who actually have been doing this for either a very long time or a very short time, but they have a group of people around them who know when to lead and know when to follow, to be led, to share their experience. When I joined the food bank, the CEO at the time, Chris Harris, he was ex-British military, and he used to tell us all the time, if you want to get rid of something, then you have to have a plan on how you're going to do it. But one of the first things you have to remember before you set out, has everybody had lunch? And you just want to make sure that even at that basic piece, we go there. The question that I ask around the food bank all the time when people get grumpy, you ask about that. It's pressure filled because you've got people not only who are needing, but who have never been there before and never experienced this. You look at them and you go, did we feed somebody? If the worst we did today was feed somebody, I think we've got to win. So let's get rid of all this other crap that we're trying to focus on. Let's focus on what we're here to do. Did we serve our customer? Are we doing it in the best way we know how right now? And will we continue to do that as we go through this? It's going to be ugly. In my house, we started COVID with 7 3-week-old puppies, 3 dogs of our own, and an isolation order. So now what do you do? But despite the fact that we shoveled a lot of shit, because there's a lot of shit coming out of puppies, you still got to play with the puppies at the end of the day. So I can come home and look after myself by doing the job, cleaning the puppies. But then I got to play with them and I got to de-stress. And we got to say to other people, hey, I know you can't come play with the puppies. Some of our staff at the food bank, I would send them pictures of puppies and say, okay, I want you to, in your mind, use visualization. Gil commented a little bit on this, Tony commented on this. Use visualization to say, I know what it's like to be here. So one of my happy places actually is I have heard the Northern Lights. So we've all talked about seeing them. We've talked about the colors. We've talked about pictures we've seen. Living up north, I used to be able to lay down on the ice and watch the show and listen to the Northern Lights. The song is incredible. And to Tony's comment about actors and other performers doing it for free right now, Mother Nature does that too. We need to respect that and we need to bring that back into us when we have those difficult moments where really you want to just bang your head on the table. Yeah, we have to lay off somebody. Yes, the cash flow is not good. We're going to be in this for a while. But I think as leaders, we have that ability to share those little pieces with each other and look at it and say, it's the people who come first, not me. And trust me, when you have a volunteer site at the food bank that's 4,500 people strong, we didn't phone all the volunteers, but we did find ways to reach out to them. We actually had to reach out and apologize to them because some of them were over 65 and we didn't want them close to any infection. How do you phone somebody who wants to be part of it and say, I'm sorry, we want to look after you? when everyone else is looking going, we would just like to have people come back into us. So the responsibilities that come with this change are incredible. I cannot thank enough Abe, Connie, for bringing a group of people together to listen and to share their stories about how it has created incredible strife. There are amazing companies in this town. Lunches for our family right now are being provided by a small catering company that is doing meals for the residents in Canadian Mental Health Association homes. So they've got a small contract to do 2 meals a day for 5 or 7 homes or something like that. And what we did was said, well, we're hungry too, so can you add lunches to that so that Caitlin, Michelle, and I can also eat? And we paid. That's the point. Listening to what Graham had said before and what others have said, please pay for what you need. This is not a time to go out and say, can I have this for free? Or give me a 10% discount. This is a time to look at our community and say, you know what? Can we do this differently? And this is the time when leaders actually come to the forefront. So I can't thank Calgary enough for everything they do to support the Calgary Food Bank. But on phone calls to other food banks, I often say it's a Calgary thing. You wouldn't understand. So thank you for being leaders. Thank you for allowing me to share your skills with other people. And thank you for looking after people, because I think that as leaders in our community, that's what we need to do. It's our time to look after other people, but also remember that we need puppy cuddles too. So thank you, Connie. Thank you, Abe.
Thank you so much, James. That was incredible. And, James just always speaks so intelligently with so much heart. And it is a Calgary thing. And, one of the things that we do want to mention, and we're going to get you all out of here on time at 2 p.m., so don't worry about that. But, in kind of lieu of a registration cost, because none of these speakers are being paid, of course, we're not paid for this. The idea it's not about money. It's actually about adding value to community. And we wonder if you would be kind enough to hop online, and please donate generously to the Calgary Food Bank. I mean, I can't think of any agency right now on the front lines as a charity. And, I spent over a decade in the nonprofit space that is more critical to ensure that they're well-resourced, because if they're well-resourced and people have food security, what happens is, of course, you have no idea what that does to people's mental health, right? If you can't eat, it's pretty tough to not be completely taken over with stress, anxiety, fear, especially if you're a parent, right? Because you're thinking about your kids. And so, James, you guys have stood the test of time. I think we would all agree with that, not just you, but your entire organization. And so thank you, folks, and please do generously donate. Now, I'm kind of the last speaker, I guess, and really I don't have anything to say beyond to try to wrap up this incredible day. Wellness Innovate, if you kind of say, well, what does Wellness Innovate do? Our focus primarily is workplace mental health, because if we can get the workplace right, and then that will have a major impact on people's mental health. But before working with Wellness Innovate, as I mentioned, I spent quite a bit of time in the nonprofit sector, and I was the director of programs at the Calgary Drop-In Center when the flood happened in 2013. And as I was thinking about COVID-19, the only sort of reference point that I had that I could think about in terms of scope and scale, because there's nothing like COVID-19, but what comes close, and I would say it would be the flood. Where we had to evacuate about 1,000 clients from the drop-in center, the main location downtown. We evacuated in Northeast Calgary, and we had to essentially set up operations, if you can imagine, of a homeless shelter in a building that was a hotel that wasn't meant for, this kind of, sort of population and clientele. And it was in that process I learned a couple of things about managing and leading in a crisis. I think the first thing was this idea of compassion. Now, we all get it. I mean, every one of us on this call today are compassionate people. But if you're leading a team, I'm going to just say that there's probably nothing more important than taking time, looking your people in the eye the way I know, Gil does, and James and Tony and Katherine and Graham and Karen, and just check in, right? To extend that person-to-person compassion. Now, it might be on a Zoom call, but don't get so caught up that we don't take a bit of time to just look people in the eye and ask them how they're doing. I think the second thing I discovered was communication. There's so much that we don't know about COVID-19. There's so much that we don't know about policy responses, and yet ensuring that we create open spaces for people to talk. And be, I mean, all I heard from every one of our panel guests, it was so incredible today. How many of you would agree was just so much transparency, right? Open communication. This is who I am. This is what we're dealing with. And I think that the third thing, and it really nicely leads, is this idea of collaboration. You know, if I'm a leader and I'm able to be vulnerable about the things I know and the things I don't know, if I'm able to talk about, you know, here's where we are, but here's the things we don't know, all of a sudden you activate the creativity of your team. And it's amazing to me, like, you know, thinking about Broken Yolk, and, you know, we've gotten some stuff from them takeout, and the creativity of their team that was unlocked through collaboration to put little sticky note, really nice, warm greetings. And actually, if I could show you right now, my daughter, our 5-year-old daughter, Jasmine, she's got them all up on the window to my home office here, you know, and James, to be able to set up a drive-through food bank. I mean, that does not happen because James is some great genius. That is a team-based collaborative approach, right? and even Tony, you know, as you guys get to this place where it's restarting, you know, because that will happen. We'll restart and we'll be able to go back to the grand. You know, it's really all about that collaboration. And so, you know, really, I think in the middle of COVID-19, obviously, we get this idea that in the middle of adversity, opportunity abounds. You know, Connie and I at Wellness Innovate, we've been so blessed to be invited into people's journey. You know, we've had a lot of opportunity to work with nonprofits, for-profits, businesses, entrepreneurs, small, medium, large, in the middle of COVID-19, actually working through topics like you can see on the screen. Everything from personal resilience to business resilience to, you know, how do you maintain creativity and innovation in the middle of a crisis, and what's the impact of trauma on how we lead. And, you know, it's so crazy. I was saying to Connie before the call started today, we're even going to be doing some webinars in Egypt, if you can imagine, because, you know, some connections of ours in Cairo heard about what we're doing in the context of the workplace and supporting mental health. And to think that a culture that's on the other side of the planet, you know, in Egypt, which is an amazing culture, but the impact of COVID-19 on mental health is profound, right? And we've heard it many times. There's no discrimination. There's no age. There's no income. There's certainly no class or race barrier here. This thing has a profoundly solid impact. And so, you know, if you have any sort of thought about, you know, inviting us to come and support, for us, this is not about money. I'm telling you, probably 80% of what we're doing right now, we're not even charging for. Why is that? Because it's all about giving back. Let's get people through this. And part of that, as you're working on business strategy and operations and logistics and HR, let us support your team when it comes to mental health. Let us be that bit of a support and that bit of a buffer. And you can reach out to Connie. She's got a pretty easy email address, Connie@Wellness Innovate. And, you know, as we bring this to a conclusion, again, I just want to, you know, put out a strong encouragement. I get it. You know, if you can't, you can't. That's totally cool. Family first, right? Absolutely. But for those of you who can, let's get behind James and the Calgary Food Bank. And, you know, I think, you know, what we'll do as we close is I'd love for all of the panelists, if they could, number one, if you don't mind, if you can, if you're still there, because I know they're all so busy, but throwing your video on again, because we'd love to get a photo of you. But if you wouldn't mind also to throw on your microphone and just you know, we've still got 4 minutes. So that gives you each about 20 seconds to just give us a final sort of greeting, if you don't mind. So who'd like to go first? Why don't we start with Tony?
Do you want a word of wisdom from me? I think the one thing I will say, I talked a little bit earlier about breathing, and I think it's just such a simple thing to introduce into your life. So easy, so beneficial. I mean, the upsides are so enormous. It's been a savior in my life in times of difficulty and trauma. So Breathe your way through this. Thank you.
Love it. Don't stop breathing, please.
Oh yeah, that's the other point. Don't stop breathing.
That's right. How about you, Catherine?
We would just say that there's a ton of authenticity, and authenticity is beautiful across the board. And so I think it's how great leaders lead, and it's so nice to see that from everyone today. And I've ordered beer and donated to the food bank.
Wow, best boss ever. Okay, how about you, Graham?
There's a little GIF that I saw once, and it's one of my favorite little sayings ever. And it's a little boy, and he's sitting on the edge of a building, and he's got a little cape on. And it just says, "Do epic shit" on it. It's one of my favorite little GIFs ever. And because it's the mind that we have as a kid, that we're just going to go out and it'd be a force of awesome. Somewhere along the ways, we get scared of things. And I think we just got to get back to that child mentality with our little cape on and think about doing epic shit.
Love it. It's great. How about you, Gil?
I just wanted to say, I think I learned something from each and every leader's speech today, and that was truly amazing. Like I said, we're new in small business, and so I'm still trying to learn and grow. And so thank you to all the other leaders that were here, because I learned a lot from you guys today. So thank you, guys.
And James?
You have to find the unmute button before you can talk. That's probably the best thing about a mute button, is that it really helps you filter and censor. What Gil said, but what everybody said.
That was so awesome, James.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. Yeah. Sorry, I've now got, so the first time I ever met Tony, he and Marcy were at an adopt-a-thon type thing, and all we had was dogs and space. So when we meet for the first time, and it's just so much fun when you remember the people that you've met and you're able to share an experience like this, to say, okay, so Gil just tried to barter away his kids for some puppies. I now know what he does for a living. Graham just makes me drool with all the beer in the background there. Catherine, I'm on Shaw at home here, so I'm just really happy to be here. It's fun, and I thank everybody for putting up with us as well. So thank you all.
That's so good. That's so good. And again, folks, please do, donate to the food bank. James is doing such great work, and follow us on Wellness Innovate. I'm going to turn it over to Connie. The only thing I would love to say is, in the middle of all this, if you're really concerned about your own mental health, and this is really important, maintain your routines, right? As much as you can. Take care of yourself physically. Don't allow, the situation to kind of unsettle your peace, and lean into this with all that you can. And so on that note, I'll turn over to Connie, and she's going to bring us in for a landing today.
No, thank you again to all the speakers, and for your vulnerability and bravery. And we just honor everything that you are and everything that you're doing. We absolutely adore you. And to everyone who came, we asked you a question when you came. What did you bring into COVID? And I would love to pose the question as we all leave. What are you taking away from this? It's giving you hope and giving you strategy for your next step. And I'm going to email every single one of you and ask you that question. And I would love to hear your response, because it's great in intention, but we all know that action is where the real magic happens. And so let's do epic shit, Graham. Let's do it. And that's all I got. Thank you, everyone.